David, at the time of this recording for the podcast, the Wizards, yes, the Washington Wizards, are not only first in the East, but my friend, they're tied for the second best record in the association. We'll get into weeds of why, but the overarching thought of this team after 12 games from your perspective is what?
I would say they have taken a quantum leap up in terms of understanding what winning basketball is about. And some of that, and the good thing is that it's not any one person. They brought a bunch of guys in who had really good habits. Again, you'd start with KCP. To me, you start with KCP and Kuzma because they got pelts, they got rings.
Right.
They played with LeBron. They know what it takes to win a championship. They won a championship. They were key pieces to that team winning a championship. You add Dinwiddie, who was on some very, not the Nets teams now with KD and Harden, but those were really good Brooklyn teams. We all marveled at how good they were because we thought, well, they ain't got no players. How are they so good? Because they had players like Spencer Dinwiddie, that really knew what they were doing. You add Montrez, who was on good teams with the Clippers, that were in the playoffs, won the Sixth Man of the Year award. And I had forgotten, Chris, I'll be honest with you, I've forgotten Montrez won a chip in college. I've forgotten that. I didn't realize he got a ring at Louisville, So another guy that knows how to win, knows what winning is about at the highest level. So you bring those guys in, then you bring in Wes Jr., the coach who coached, we know how good those Denver teams have been the last few years, how good defensively they've been. And he had a key part in that, along with Mike Malone, of course. But so they've brought in a bunch of guys who are like, no, this is how you win in this league. You have to do these things to win in this league. And they have taken the load off of Brad. And I think you see that. I think Brad understands now, oh, wow, I don't have to score 30. I don't have to make every decision. And we still winning, So you hope that provides a roadmap for him to say, okay, I can see this working. This could be possible, and you also add young guys like Gafford with a full season, full training camp here. Holiday's been good. He hasn't been great, but he's been good in his minutes. I think he's done what they thought he could do, which is be a pest defensively. Made some shots, actually, even. And, Kispert's a rookie, but Kispert's been on the floor. And Denny Avdija is much better. Look, he's better. Bottom line, he's better than he was last year. And so that's a lot of improvement, to this team that, again, all in service of winning, not in service of stats, not in service of let me make this all-star team or I got to make all NBA. It's about winning basketball games. And that's what they've been doing.
David, I have a theory.
Yeah.
And I said this on our most recent post-game show.
Mm-hmm.
And both of the guys on the set looked at me and it was like smoke came out of their ears because they were like, oh. Everything that you said is true. I think a lot of these guys came from the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Head coach, the guys that won chips, the Sixth Man of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, the Western Conference was known as varsity.
Right.
Every night you got teams really best shots. So when they play a team like Orlando the other night, Western Conference teams knew how to go into their building and just beat up JV real quick and get out of there. The Wizards game against Orlando reminded me of what the Western Conference teams would normally do, which is take care of their business and then they go home. The reason why I say that is Kuz and KCP, I think, won the hardest NBA championship of all. I just feel like you had to be so mentally tough in the bubble to do that under that circumstance. So a regular season game in Orlando on a Saturday night is no big deal to them.
Yes.
Whatever it takes to win. I
Right.
want to get your thoughts on that. The fact that Wes coached out West, and a lot of
Yeah.
these guys, besides Spence, were Western Conference players and have won at a high level out West. Does that have any merit to you?
Yeah, I mean, some, sure. I mean, but the important thing is that they won. You know, you could have a bunch of Western Conference players that didn't win nothing. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could have brought guys in from Oklahoma City or, you know, places like that ain't won nothing in a few years. These guys all won. These guys won at high levels. They competed at high levels also. And that's very important. So even though the Nuggets didn't win a championship, they got to a Western Conference final. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were in a Western Conference final. They slugged their way through a series with Utah and did all those things and had those big moments. So to your point, they're not going to trick bag a game in Orlando without their best player and just say, oh, we just show. No, they know, okay, this is what we have to do. And again, we all know how this would have played out in years past. Maybe the Wizards still would have won the game against Orlando, but it would have been a 3-point game with 2 minutes left and one possession. And, oh, we got to get a stop on Jalen Suggs. What they going to do? And no, they just said that we're better than them. Blow them out. Let's get this done and go home, you know? And that's what good teams do. That's what professional teams do. They take care of business. They don't mess around. What did Kuzma say? You don't play with your food? Exactly.
Yeah. Don't play with your food. Listen, your mama worked or your daddy worked all day. When they come home and they've been yelled at all day, the last thing they want to do is tell you to eat your food. You know how much that food costs? Right? So it's kind of like, you know, when I think of the Wizards, I think about that. That's just such a great analogy. It's like, you know how much this food costs?
Right.
You know how much we paying you? Get your out there and go win this game in Orlando. Don't make me have to.
Go beat Mo Bamba. Come on now.
Yeah. We're talking to the Hall of Famer, David Aldridge from The Athletic here on the Off the Bench podcast. You said something earlier that got me thinking about Brad not having to do it all. Yeah. And this team has already won twice without him. One for injury, obviously, one for bereavement. We send our condolences to his family. What do you think his mindset is? Because, you know, before the season started, and you and I have heard this the last couple of years with him, DA, he says it's all about winning. Well, it's a small sample size, but they're doing a lot of that, and without him having to carry the offensive load.
Yeah. I mean, look, I would never presume to know what anybody's thinking at any given point in time, much less Brad. I would think, I mean, I would say this, you know Brad very well, better than I do, but I know Brad a little bit. I think Brad's a pretty honest guy, right? I mean, so if he says, hey, I want to win, I'm at the point in my career where I want to win, and you see, here you go. This is how you win. We got guys, we've put guys around you that are helping you win, and you don't have to expend all max energy all the time to win games. In fact, we can win games without you. And maybe those 2 games they've won without him might be more important than any other the games that they won with him.
Totally agree.
You know what I mean? So I would think this is, you know, I would think this is a good sign for the Wizards to me. Because unless, again, I don't think Brad is like a guy it seems clear to me the last 2 years would make it obvious to me that this is not a guy that's looking to be wooed and wined and dined. And it's like, you know, I'm going to play these 2 teams against each other and I'm going to let everybody know I'm going to leak it out through my agent or whoever that I want out and all that sort of thing. He hasn't done any of that. None of that. In fact, people get angry with him because he doesn't do that. You know, so to me, it's like, all right, well, and let's not get it twisted. There's a big bag of money waiting for Brad next year.
Hey, DA, a chunk of change. There's a chunk of change.
That's some big money. There's a big bag waiting for Brad next year if he sticks around. So if they're winning, and again, you mentioned it, small sample size. We ain't even got a quarter of the way through the season yet. But if it continues this way, if they somehow, in a miracle, managed to win 50 games, which this franchise is genetically incapable of doing.
By the way, they're on pace. They're on pace for 56.
Like every other franchise in this league does regularly, but this franchise just can't for some reason. If they did that and they got to the, they get 2 or 3 rounds in, they get to a conference semi or a conference finals. I mean, I would think that would be convincing. And, they certainly, if they play at this level, continue to play at this level, have enough depth and enough surplus that they could package a couple of guys if they wanted to, if they thought they needed another higher level, top 15 level player. I would think they might have a chance to go get one. Now we'll see.
This is really the difference between this Wizards team and maybe Wizards teams in the past, off of what you just said just now. Tommy and his staff have a surplus of options.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is because of what they've been able to draft, what they've been able to develop, they now can get on the phone with other teams and be like, look, man, we got a nice package of players. We got some picks. We got some whatever you want to do to make a deal. It's so far down the road, but it is something that I did want to highlight with you, DA, is not only are they winning on the court, but I think they're winning in the front office right now with the way that they've been able to put a lot of balance around Brad. Hence the reason, again, 2-0 since he, when he's not out there. We've gone this far during this podcast, and we haven't talked about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is defense.
Oh, sure.
David, the way they are guarding collectively is music to my ears and good food for the soul. What specifically defensively do you like about this group?
There's no more chaos. There's no more making, just simple mistakes about how you're going to cover something, how you're going to play something. You've seen it for how long? Even when they were good, like even the last time they played defense to me this way was when Randy Whitman was coaching the team.
Absolutely.
And it was Whit, but it was also, I will never forget how good Trevor Ariza was defensively. And Nene was good defensively. And Gortat was good defensively. Because when when the paint is tight and you got a wing defender that knows what the hell he's doing, it just simplifies everything. You're not chasing. Oh, we made a bad rotation. Now we got to go, the corner, now the ball's moving. Now we're ping-ponging and chasing. And how many wide open threes have they given up a game in the last 5 years? 15 a game, 20? Sometimes the team makes them, sometimes they miss, but they're still wide. It's still bad defense. When you watch KCP defensively, whether he's involved in the action or he's on the weak side, just knowing what's going to happen and being able to anticipate where the ball's going to go and acting upon that and either taking an option away from the offense or disrupting the play with a deflection or a steal. It just makes all the difference in the world. Kuzma is not a lockdown defender, but he's long and he's smart and he knows how to guard people so that if they do shoot, it's a contested shot over a 6'10" guy. You know what I mean? Gafford tries to block everything. God bless him. Sometimes he succeeds, sometimes he doesn't. But at least there's a presence there where a guy coming into the paint goes, oh, snap, I gotta get this up over this guy, or I gotta fake, I gotta do something. I gotta stop doing what I was doing, which was going straight line drive to the front of the rim, which happened for decades on this team. You know what I mean? And Dinwiddie, just like Kuzma, not the greatest defensive player in the world by any stretch, but he's 6'6". He's long, he's smart, he moves his feet. So you're not going to just blow by him and break down the defense. So you just look at the numbers. Like you said, it's a collective thing. It's not any one individual, but so far, and numbers fluctuate, but defensive rating is the gold standard. Tells you if you BSing or if you're real about defense. They are fourth in the league in defensive rating. Fourth.
Yep.
You know, they were, I don't know what they were last year, 20th, 18th, something like that. Now they had a great second half, but they weren't fourth, you know.
Right.
They're seventh in defensive rebound percentage, which means they're not giving up offensive rebounds. They are, I think, second in fast break points allowed, which means they're getting back. They're not doing what we've seen them do a lot, which is watch a shot and not bother to get back. When somebody guard takes the shot, the other guard just standing there watching, and somebody goes past them and there's a 2-on-1 the other way. So at all levels of defense, so far, they are playing at a very high level.
You know, I get the sense of accountability with Wes Unseld, and it didn't take long for me to see him have to check the team.
Yeah.
But it's how he checks the team.
Right.
You know, in 2021, David, you know, we're some old heads. You can't go at players like you used to. You have to.
No, that's right.
It's almost, I don't want to, negotiation sounds bad, but it has to be in a way where it's not combative.
Yeah.
And you can't love on them too much.
Right.
There has to be this balance. And I think Wes has this balanced presence where if he has to, he will. Yeah. And I've been told by multiple people, he's not afraid to jump on the best player to the 14th player in film study and is willing to correct.
Yeah.
But in a way where it's, I understand what you need from me, coach. I'm going to go out and try to implement it. In all your years of covering the NBA, how important is it now for coaches in this league to have that type of relationship with the entire team? Not superstars and then talk crazy to the rookies, but have a working communication.
Well, yeah. Well, his father, the late Wes Sr., used to always say, you can't treat, what did he say? You treat everybody equally, but you don't treat them the same. Is what he used to say.
Right.
Which is, you understand that the star player gets a little bit of leeway, but the other players have to feel like he's being fair. The coach is being fair to me. Even when he gets on me, it's fair, right? To your point. So that's where I think Junior seems to, at least at the beginning of his coaching career, have a good feel for that, for how to correct, how to coach these guys in a way that feels fair to everyone, right? And so far, but again, I think it also helps when you have vets around that understand that, they get it, that aren't, you know, tripping if the coach comes at Kuz or comes at KCP. They're not like, why you didn't talk to Brad like that? Why are you talking to me? It's not like that. There's a self-policing aspect to this locker room, at least so far, that I think is very important to a first-time young head coach. But Wes, to me, is like he's not like Mike Malone is tough. You know, he's tough. I don't think people dislike playing for him because he knows what he's doing. Like Tom Thibodeau knows what he's doing. It's tough to get that feedback like that all the time. I think Wes may be more in the kind of Eric Spoelstra line of coaching, where Spo, you never see Spo sweat. You know what I mean? Like at least on outwardly, you know that he's coaching his team because they play smart and they're intelligent and all those things. But it never comes out that way when you see him on the court. You know, he seems like he's in control of his emotions, and he's very, very cerebral about how to approach the game. And I think Wes has some of those qualities. And time will tell, obviously, but I think it's very encouraging to see how this team responds to him and has responded to him so far.
I'm curious, as a longtime Washingtonian, for you personally, that's covered this league so long, what's it like to see him roaming the sidelines in DC? It's so, you know, I've asked, you know, Bobby D, I recently talked to him about it, and he said, man, you know, I shed a little bit of a tear because I remember this little kid walking into the locker room. But for you, that's, you know, you covered his dad. What's it like? Have you ever just had a kind of a moment where you're at the arena and you go, Wes Unseld Jr. is coaching the Wizards?
Oh, all the time. I have that. I have that all the time. Because I covered his dad, and his dad was a very important person to me in my career. It was that was the first two people I covered as the beat writer were John Thompson and Wes Unseld Sr. Those were the first
Giants,
two.
literally.
Yeah. And so your career can go in so many directions, and it can be broken. You can be broken as a young writer if you're dealing with people who aren't honest, who aren't trustworthy, who aren't fair, who aren't professional. That can really jade you and make you not want to do this. And I was blessed to have those two guys be the first two coaches that I covered on a daily basis, because they were all of those things. They were fair, they were honest, they were available. They treated me like a professional, even though I was 22, 23 years old when I was covering them. I wasn't any older than John Thompson's seniors. I was the same age as his seniors, you know what I mean? And he treated me with respect, and Wes treated me with respect. And that made all the difference to me as a young reporter, because I didn't know anything. And they answered my stupid questions, with grace and aplomb. And Wes, as I've said and written many times, Wes Sr. is the most honest person I've ever covered in 30 years of doing this, 35 years now of doing this. He never lied to me, not once, ever, about anything or anyone. And I remember going to Bowie State and seeing little Wes, and he was probably 8 or 9 then, and seeing him, and he was very polite and very quiet, as he is now, very polite and very quiet. But yeah, sure, I remember him being around Bowie State and at practice. And so, sure. And Wes was, and it was a lot more intimate in those days, Chris, because there wasn't nearly as much media and no social media. So it was just me and Charlie Slows, who was the radio guy, and who now is the play-by-play guy for the Nats. It was me and Charlie Slows on the road. That was it. That was the media contingent covering the Bullets. That was it. And so you would have lunch, you'd have dinner sometimes with Wes, or you'd certainly be at the bar post-game with him and with the whole coaching staff. And they would teach you, they taught me about the NBA. If you were smart, you just shut up and listen, and they taught you about the league. And to have that kind of grounding was just, I can't even describe how valuable that was, how important it was to me. And so to see his son take that job, sure, man, it's all kinds of emotions that well up in you, because, it was an important time in my career. And to see him come here, understand what that name means to this franchise, and to see him do well off the jump, man, it's something.
I have to tell you, this is my 15th year covering this team, but I remember when I first got here, like you said, I just was around a lot of good people that kind of just helped me. I was more of a grizzled vet, had already been in the business 10 years, covered some big time stuff before coming to DC. So I was kind of jaded, if you will. You know how it is, David, when you're a little older and, everything, you're skeptical. But like you said, there was just some good people. And I just remembered him on Eddie's staff. And I didn't remember this until I talked to Eddie Jordan after Wes got the job. I was just, calling people and being like, hey, what do you remember about Junior? And he was like, him, Michael O'Korn, all of them would call him genius. They said his advanced scout was meticulous, was amazing. And that was offense.
Yeah.
And, the narrative when he got here was like, oh, he was a good defensive coach in Denver and he helped develop Jokic and do all this other stuff. I was like, no. He could do all of it.
Yeah.
How soon we forget. And I just thought it was a lazy narrative. And I wanted to get your take on this about, well, his name helped him. Well, sure. But if you did your homework and saw what he's done the last 10 years, it was kind of a no-brainer. You and I had talked offline. I told you who should get the job. I was like, Wes. I was like, I don't, what's taking so long? Let's go, right? But I want to get your take on just kind of his roadmap coming back home.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you just look at the resume, right? He's done everything, to your point, coached in a bunch of different places. had different responsibilities, and handled all of them well. Look, Mike Malone, Mike Malone went above and beyond and said, look, this dude's ready to be a head coach. y'all don't understand how good this guy is. And, I did the same thing you did, talk to people that had been with him, around him, and guys like Aaron Aflalo down in Orlando, when he was down in Orlando, they just swore by him. Said the guy, even at a young age, he was really sharp. This guy's really sharp. Look, the dude went to Johns Hopkins. Come on now. Come on now. They don't just let people come into Johns Hopkins. Okay?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
you just don't apply online and pay the $15 admission fee.
Yeah, they don't have an 85% acceptance rate at Johns Hopkins. Okay? Right. So yeah. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing and can communicate it. I think that's the important thing. And I think the most important thing, and I've found this in my own dealings, is over the years with people, is that if you have to be who you are. This. Like, you can't pretend to be who I can't pretend to be Stephen A. Smith. It will not work for me. Right. I will be exposed as a phony if I do that. And so it's very interesting to me that Wes Jr. is being Wes Jr. the way he is, and they're listening. You know what I mean? And they're listening, and they're not saying, "Oh, you don't have this experience, or you didn't have a hard Scrabble life coming up." All the things you could say to a guy that has Wes's history and pedigree. They listen. So it's coming. So he has the respect of this team, and that is, to me, very encouraging going forward, because players do tend to come and go in this league. It's just the reality of the league. So the roster they have now is not the roster they'll have in 2 years. But if he has established himself already as a guy whose X's and O's you cannot question, that's a really good sign for this franchise.
It's interesting. I talked to a couple of former Wizards players about him, and I'm like, could you play for him? 100%. They're all like, yeah. I'm like, why? Because one guy told me, no preservatives, no added ingredient.
Right. Just
seems like a real dude. And you know how it is in this league. Guys can smell that stuff. If you know what I mean. They can smell it. And
absolutely,
he just seems to have a way of kind of working the room. Is not fair, but he can get everybody's attention. I want to ask you something real quick about your subscribers at The Athletic.
Yeah.
Everybody's got comment sections.
Sure.
So early sample size, what are your listener, your viewers, your readers, what are they all saying about this year's Wizards team?
Well, so far, I mean, it's been obviously a mix of shock and delight, right? I can't believe they're playing this well. And people, it's no secret, when teams are winning, people are happy. People are happier. And the comment section,
food tastes better,
are happy. Yeah, it's not like when they're going 25 and 57 and fire everybody, fire the owner, fire this, that, and third. So that's not part of the narrative so far this year. People are very happy with this team. They're very happy, with the additions that have been made. A lot of praise, and rightly so, for Tommy Shepard and the job that he's done and that his staff did in putting this roster together and building this thing within 2 years around Brad. A real team, a real group of players that he can win with, and really putting, like you said, with the players you talked to, could I play for Wes Unseld Jr.? Absolutely. This pays dividends down the road. You are laying the groundwork. Now you are setting the foundation for, whether it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if this thing continues to go in this direction, a free agent of consequence saying, the Wizards would seem like they know what they're doing. They put a good team around Brad. I mean, look at these Wizards, man. I might come here in 2 years. I might come here. And that sets the stage for it. So when you lay the foundation based on real things that are tangible, that players respect, what's the organization's philosophy? What are they doing? Whether it's analytical or whatever, is the infrastructure in place? What's their practice facility look like? How do they take care of their guys on the road? Do they take care of their families? All of these things seem to be falling into place at a higher level. And I think that if you continue on this path, suddenly people will say, I want to go play in Washington first, not in case I don't get to play in New York or LA or Golden State. No, I want to go to Washington. And that's the payoff down the road.
Great stuff, my friend. I appreciate your time as always. I can't leave without saying this to you because of what's about to happen this Sunday. Keep pounding.
Oh, we loud talking now.
You know
loud
we in here
talking
now. You know it's, hey man.
I didn't hear this. I didn't hear nothing when Sam Darnold was taking his nap.
Although when they start 2-0, 3-0, my dad and I were like, he's not seeing ghosts anymore. And then doggone it, David, he starts seeing ghosts again.
To see what happens. I can't co-sign on Washington coming in there and dominating or nothing, but that was certainly encouraging, beating Tampa Bay. So
yeah, obviously our prayers go out to our one DeMatha young boy, Chase Young. That was tough. Yeah. I just saw it. I was in Philly yesterday and just saw it this morning. I wish him well. Thank you, brother, for your time. I appreciate it. Anytime, have a great week.
Man. Anytime. You too, my brother.